This month, I bring a sculpture that's been long in the making, inspired by the idea of turning a photograph into a sculpture. The branches I'm working with come from Arrayan, a Chilean native tree known for its hard wood and warm color. I began by adding a thick central branch and set a simple rule. The composition stays within a rectangular framing, with branches cut at its edges. I keep adding branches until the idea of framing becomes clear and the whole composition feels balanced. If you ask me, it already looks nice at this stage, but an argument can be made that it's still unfinished work. Now before moving on to clay, I take a moment to draw. This helps me plan ahead and speeds up the sculpting process, saving me a substantial amount of time invested in trial and error. With a clear direction, I begin working with the clay. I watch it beforehand by rotating and pressing it repeatedly, a method known as Ramsay technique. This helps ensure even consistency and removes air pockets that could cause the piece to crack or burst during firing. I also try to always work with a reference image in sight. It helps me come up with ideas and keeps me grounded when working through repetition. Most of the foliage work is done using a wooden rib and finished with a metal brush for texturing. To maintain the illusion of boundaries, the pieces that cross them are also cut at an angle, so I use a ruler aligned with the metallic base to project those cuts. With this final piece, the first batch containing all the foliage is complete, so I'll leave them to dry before hollowing them. After a couple of days drying in the shade, the pieces are now leather hard, so I'll hollow out the chunkier forms. I find this practice very beneficial. Not only does it reduce the risk of breakage during firing, but it's also a way to reclaim material, which really adds up over time. Now that the pieces are lighter, I can start working on the branches that will support them, figuring out how they're shaped as I go. At this point, I feel like I've developed a technique that really works for assembly, and results in a solid, sturdy joint, with the addition of wire inserts being key. They hold everything in place as the epoxy cement sets, which otherwise would result in chaos. I've also come up with these dead branch projections that pierce through the foliage, borrowed from bonsai aesthetics. They will help tie the structure to the overall composition. After a couple of days, these and other parallel sculptures are bone dry and ready for Bisque firing. A first firing at around 900 degrees Celsius that strengthens the clay and makes it porous enough to absorb glaze. It takes the electric kiln about 8 hours to reach that temperature, and nearly twice as long to cool down. With everything out of the kiln in one piece, it's time for glazing. I'll use a creamy white for the branches. Once I've filed the wood, it should match the tone, since it's naturally pale on the inside. As for the foliage, I'm going with a jade glaze, as I usually do with this. Painting the foliage is a pain. The rough, textured surface means I have to carefully feel every tiny hole left after each brush stroke. It also uses a lot of glaze, and getting it just right after firing is tricky. And so, I'm thinking of experimenting with different texture levels and the number of glaze coats to find the sweet spot. This time around, firing will go much higher, up to 1200 degrees Celsius. At this temperature, the glaze melts and fuses with the surface, creating its final color and texture. It also vitrifies the clay, making it much stronger and less porous. That said, I really need to find a better way to fire these small pieces. They take a lot of time to arrange in the kiln, and using stilts has never felt too reliable, so if you do know a better way, I'm open to suggestions. It's been some time since the initial glaze firing. The foliage came out darker than I hoped, so I added another coat of glaze and fired it again. That extra step took a few weeks, but I'm finally satisfied with the result and ready to begin assembly. I marked the spot for the wire insert with red paint, then drilled the corresponding hole, insert the wire, and repeat. Once I'm done, I glue the branches in place with epoxy, which needs time to cure before I can attach the foliage pieces, making assembly a 2-day process. As I remove the masking tape, I can already tell the sculpture isn't quite finished yet, like it's missing a piece. So I gave myself some time to decide, while filing away the bark to reveal the pale wood underneath. This new piece extended the process by about a month, but I'd much rather finish the sculpture properly than leaving it feeling incomplete. This piece also fixes something that bothered me from the start, as I cut the main branch too short, but I took it as an opportunity and added my maker's mark on it. Now this looks much better. Notice how a single piece can bring the whole thing together. And now for the final touch, more filing. Since I was already doing this, I decided to get some cheap drill bits to make the filing work lighter and less risky, as it's usually rough movements that break these twinkly branches. After some cleaning and a bit of assembly, the build will be complete. As I say my goodbyes, I will leave you with a montage of the final piece. As always, thank you so much for making it this far in the video. It really means a lot to me, as these videos aren't easy to make, but I really like doing them. So if you would like to support me, please leave a like or even comment what you thought of the video, as it all helps with the algorithm.